Hello, hello, good evening. This is the information session for Larkwood and Raynham. It's just 6 o'clock now. Gonna give it a second before we get started as other folks are joining in. I see some additional people joining. My name is David Cashman. I'm with SEB Housing. We're the lottery and compliance agency. And we're sort of your main point of contact during this application period and up through the lottery, and then we stay involved after that as well. So let me just give it another minute here, allow some folks to join, and then we'll get started. And in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm going to share my screen here so everyone can see that. Everyone see the screen okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. All right, so let's get started. So this is the information session for the affordable homeownership units at Larkwood in Raynham, Massachusetts. Like I just said, my name is David Cashman. I'm with SEB Housing. If you've already applied or looked into this a little bit, certainly you've seen our name. We are the lottery agency working on behalf of the developer. And in this lottery, there are going to be 8 affordable condominiums. Now, as of this morning, we did have to make a change. Originally, there were going to be 7 3 bedrooms and 1 2 bedroom. The 2 bedroom had a sales price that was a little bit less. You can see here on my slide, the 3 bedroom condos are selling for $278,500 with a monthly condo fee of $172. There was going to be, like I said, 1 2 bedroom offering that had a sales price around 255,000 and HOA fees of about $155 a month. But there were some changes in the plans, and the developer is no longer able to offer that. So it's going to be 8 3 bedrooms, which I think on the whole is probably maybe better. Depends what you're looking for, I suppose. But sort of anecdotally, there does seem to be a lot of interest in and demand for 3 bedroom units. So hopefully that's seen as a positive thing. The application deadline is December 16th. You do need a mortgage pre-approval with your application. So if you haven't begun working with a bank, I recommend that you do so right away, because that is the most time-consuming piece of your application. The actual application itself is hopefully fairly straightforward and hopefully not something that will take you a whole lot of time to complete. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, at some point in this process, if you're going to buy one of these condos, you would need to submit a whole bunch of income and asset and tax documentation, but you don't need to do that just to get into the lottery. For purposes of the lottery, you submit a lottery application with your mortgage pre-approval, and that's sufficient. You can submit that. Don't submit it to the developer. Submit it to us, and that our information is plastered all over the material, so you can find it there. You don't need to worry about memorizing it here. You can email it to us. You can send it by regular mail. You can fax it over if you want. And we even have a 24-hour secure locked blue Dropbox right outside our office at 257 Hillside Ave in Needham. So if you're somewhat local or you don't mind a little drive and you just want to put it in that box, that's another option. Whatever works for you works for us. And we'll confirm that we get it, so you know that we got it. Just quickly, a bit about us. I know I already said a thing. So we are an affordable housing consulting group that gets hired by the developer, and the developer here is Thorndike, and we've worked with them on other projects in the past, including in Canton and Plymouth. They're a well-known developer. They've been in business for many years. They've worked in various cities and towns across the state of Massachusetts and have a large profile of really nice homes that they've built. And we're very happy for the opportunity to be working with them again. For Larkwood, they make nice products that are varied and have different offerings. And My understanding is people like their homes, so it's great to be working with them. But just to be clear, we're SEB Housing. We are not the developer. We don't actually build the homes. We don't, we're not the sales team. We're not real estate brokers. We're the offsite affordable housing compliance and lottery group. And like I said, we are your main contact leading up to the lottery and through eligibility screening. So if you have questions, those would predominantly come to us. If you're submitting your application, that comes to us. And we screen that and are your main point of contact. Now, eventually, if you move forward, you would have the opportunity to start working with someone from the sales team, and SEB would stay involved too. But really, in this period now and up through the lottery and shortly afterwards, we're your main point of contact. If you haven't looked already, we got a website. You can find this opportunity among others there in the for sale opportunities page. And here's our best contact information: email, phone number. One word of caution, because of the volume of phone calls that we get, oftentimes if you call us, you will not get someone picking up. Please, please, please leave a message. Leave your name, leave your phone number. We will get back to you almost always within 1 business day. So please don't get discouraged. Don't just hang up. Leave the message the first call. Don't call a second to just call the first time. Leave a message. You will get a response. But email is probably even better. If you like email and you don't mind emailing, shoot us an email at info@sebhousing.com. We have an admin staff of 5. They're constantly monitoring that. And again, we're trying to get back to people as quickly as we can because we know it's important and people have questions and they want to be responded to. And we really, really try to get back to people quickly. So, all right. So that's a bit about who we are. Let me tell you a little bit about the units. I'm going to go through my slideshow, by the way, and then I'll exit out of it. I want to show you a few other things from the property's website that I think might be of interest to you, but I'll do that after. And also, I just want to say I'll be happy to take questions once I'm through going through that. I anticipate, it'd be 40 minutes, maybe 45, something like that. But also, if you have questions when I'm talking about anything, please feel free to ask. The purpose of this session is to educate you and answer any questions that you may have. So you should not feel shy about asking questions. That's the whole point. So we got 8 3-bedroom affordable condominiums that have either 1.5 or 2 bathrooms. The sales price for these is going to be $278,500 with condo fees monthly of $172. In case you're interested, I think comparable market rate units are around $600,000. So pretty good deal, less than half for essentially the same product. The square footage is between 1,806 and 1,874. There's 3 different styles of 3-bedroom units being offered, and they're all a little bit different. One of them has a 1-car garage and surface parking space. The others just have surface parking. And when I'm done going through the slideshow, I do have a floor plan for one of them. Unfortunately, I don't have all 3, but I'll show you one and you can get a flavor for, at least this one floor plan. And certainly after the lottery, if you are moving forward, when you go to select the unit of your choice, you would get to see all 3 plans and figure out which one you like best and which works for you. But presently, I only just have the one. Sorry about that.
Hi, David. Could I ask a question?
Sure.
So you said that, on the lottery application, I based my pre-approval on the 2-bedroom price because that's what I would have be able to afford.
Yes.
And did get the pre-approval. So I was wondering, I know that right now in this time period, there's only the 8 3-bedrooms, but in the future, are there going to be 2 bedrooms offered? Should I still submit? Can I still submit my application with my pre-approval for the 2-bedroom?
Yeah, it's a good question, Diane. So my understanding is that there will be two bedrooms, but they will be in future phases,
Mm-hmm.
which will be subject to a different lottery. So if you're only interested in two bedrooms, or think you could only at best qualify for two bedroom, now may not be the best time.
Mm-hmm.
This is obviously not ideal.
Yeah,
And I do apologize. I was operating off of the information given to me,
sure.
and that's what we marketed. And as soon as I learned about, there were market conditions and things that were happening on the development side that were going to prohibit them from offering the two-bedroom unit that they had planned for, we made the change. I recognize that's a disappointment, and I hope that either you would apply for a two-bedroom in the future, or do you think there's any chance you'd go for a three-bedroom, or is that out
I
of?
could yeah, I could talk to my lender. It's
Okay.
just I know it's stretching me, you know, and I trust me, I'd love the 3 bedroom, but my wheelhouse is more the two. And do you have any time frame or indication as to, or do I just keep checking the SEB housing website as to when this next phase? I just don't want to miss it, you know?
Yeah, so here's what I'd recommend. You I don't know exactly on timeframes, Diane. I mean, we get timeframes, but you know how new construction is. It's constantly a moving target, right? So
Right.
we get
Yeah.
something and then it changes, and it's just, even if I had one now, it's liable to change going forward. So I think the best thing to do, A, yes, please check our website, but B, send an email to this info@sebhousing.com
Okay.
and let them know that you'd like to be contacted when the second lottery, and you have to be clear about that, the second lottery happens,
Okay.
not
Second
the
lottery.
first. If you just say Larkwood, they're going to say, yeah, it's happening right now. So be very clear. Hey, I know there's a lottery now. I may not be able to participate in that one. I would like to be contacted, for a second lottery in the future. But I will say, Diane, if you could please check back, just because given that we're doing a current lottery there right now, and I don't know how far in the future that's going to be, I'd hate for you to get missed. So as a belt and suspenders approach, do that, but also check yourself periodically.
Okay.
But
All right.
it's probably not going to be for 6 or 9 months anyway, just FYI.
Okay. 6 to 9 months. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All
And
right. That's great. Good stuff. Great info. I appreciate your time. I'm gonna check out now, I guess.
oh,
But
okay. Yeah. And I hope you can make it work with a three-bedroom. And if not, we hope to see you in the future.
absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Um, okay, so pets are permitted. But there is a limit of two per unit. There's some great amenities at this development. And again, once I finish the slideshow, or actually, and I'll show you their website if you haven't seen it already. Maybe you already have. They have a great website. We do a lot of these lotteries with properties all over the state, and sometimes we're involved kind of really close to when units are ready, and sometimes it's a little further out. So depending on a variety of factors, they may have no website, they may have a very limited sort of splash page or limited website. In this particular case, Larkwood's website is terrific. There's all kinds of details on there. There's pictures, you can see floor plans, you can see the sort of entire community and how it's laid out, pictures of the various amenities, and see where it is in Raynham and what's around there. So if you haven't been on their website, you should totally go there. But just cribbing quickly from that, there's a tot lot, there's a community garden. So if you got a green thumb, you like to grow stuff, that's great. There are wilderness trails around the property. There's full landscaping, and there's some really nice green sort of hangout areas. It looks like there's a really nice community feel, kind of central gathering spaces that connect the units and hopefully build community. There's a half basketball court if you like shooting hoops, and the Taunton River is right there. And my understanding, I think, is you can actually walk right to it from this development, maybe get a kayak or a canoe and go for a little movement on the river. The location, you're near Raynham Center, sort of there's a triangle there. Some of you probably know better than I do. You got Route 44 kind of going east to west, and then Route 24 and I-495 going more north to south, kind of creating a triangle, and it's sort of just south of that. But near there, there's ample opportunity for hiking, for biking, like I just said, canoeing or kayaking on the Taunton River. There's a golf course, Pecoy Brook, if you're into that. MBTA commuter rail stations within about 10 minutes, the Bridgewater and Middleborough stops. There's Massasoit State Park, Johnson's Pond, Borden Colony Complex, Field and Woods, among many other area attractions, shopping, restaurants, etc. So it's a great location, not too far from Boston, Providence either. So let's flip over now to some of the less perhaps interesting details, but important no less. How do you qualify for one of these units? We've got this great new development with a number of offerings, brand new units, this great community. And so how do you be eligible? Well, importantly, everyone in the applying household has to be a first-time home buyer. That means that you cannot have owned a home within the past 3 years. There are a few exceptions. If you're age 55 plus and you've owned a home in the past 3 years, that would be an exception to this rule. Or if you're a single parent or a displaced homemaker, so you were married, you owned a home with your partner, you no longer own that home, and you're no longer married, and either you have kids over whom you have at least joint custody, or during the time you were married, you were primarily working in the home without being paid. And so in that way, you're a displaced homemaker. So those are the 3 exceptions: displaced homemaker, parent, single parent, age 55 plus. But barring that, you cannot have owned a home within the past 3 years. Then importantly, you have to qualify according to the income and asset limitations. Probably no big surprise. These are affordable units. They're being sold at prices that are probably less than half, I think, that are less than half than the market rate counterparts. There are income and asset limitations, and those are based on your household size. So, 3 different households could be applying for the same type of unit, but if they're different household sizes, they're going to have different income limits that apply to them. And they're posted right here, so you can read them. I won't go through them, but at the low end of the scale, we got a 1-person household can make up to 72,900, and a 6-person household can make up to 120,750. So in theory, the home could be more affordable to one household than it is to another, depending on what your income and assets are. Right? I mean, as a percentage of your income, if you make 120,750 versus 72,900, you're going to be paying less of your income towards the carrying cost of owning the home if you're closer to this 120,750 number. Now, if you're just as a side note, if you're wondering where these figures come from, these are published by the housing and by HUD, Housing and Urban Development. They come out every year, typically on April 1st, and they are geographically located. And so if you look around at different properties with affordable units in Massachusetts or elsewhere, you'll see they don't all have the same income limits, because there are, I don't know exactly how many, maybe I want to say 8 roughly geographic areas in Massachusetts that have different income limit. No, there's probably more than that, but there are various geographic areas with different income limits. Raynham is not the highest. It's not in Boston, Cambridge, Quincy, where a 1-person household can make up to 91,000. It's less than that, but the result is actually that these same units in Raynham are going to be priced less than if you took them and put them in, say, Newton or Brookline. where the income limits are higher and consequently the sales price is higher. So they kind of slide and shift together. This is gross income, by the way. It's not net income, so it's before taxes. There's also household asset limits of $75,000. And I'm going to go through these a little bit more on the next slide. As I've mentioned before, you do have to be pre-approved for a mortgage. So again, if you haven't started that process, that's the most time consuming. And we'd recommend that you start talking to a bank now. In the information packet, there are recommendations, and there's a link to a website that shows lenders who have experience in affordable housing. You are free to go to any lender of your choice. That is your decision. Typically, people get their mortgage commitment from the same institution that issues their pre-approval. It's not required, you could change, but in most cases, I would say that's what happens. And it's helpful to go to a lender that has experience with affordable housing because they know some of the restrictions that come with the unit. And they likely have products, because there are certain offerings that are really tailored to first-time affordable buyers that perhaps a lender who doesn't have experience with affordable housing doesn't have. So I recommend personally clicking on that link, and you can do a little search geographically and find lenders based on region who have that experience. Again, your choice, but if you do go to someone who doesn't have that experience, you're going to want to show them there's a deed rider posted on our website, and you're going to want to show them that so that they fully understand this is an affordable unit. It's not a market rate unit, and there are restrictions tied to it. And there are provisions around the resale of the unit and what it can be resold for. And there are provisions stating that it has to remain affordable in perpetuity, even if there's a foreclosure. So it's really important that the bank understand that, so that the loan officer isn't saying, yeah, no problem. I'm looking at your income and assets, and I'm looking at the sales price. Sure, we can get you a product on this. And then down the road, when their underwriters start looking at it more closely, someone says, wait a second, this is an affordable unit. It's got these various restrictions. We can't make a loan on this. So anyway, that's my spiel. Check out the info pack, check out that website. That's my recommendation, but you are free to go to whomever you want. Lastly, you can't have a financial interest in the development or be a related party. This does not come up often. I'd say occasionally, someone says like, hey, my uncle is the guy developing it. In that case, we say, sorry, there are other affordable opportunities in the state, but you can't buy an affordable unit at the development that your uncle's doing because that's considered a related party. And that's just to keep up appearances, make sure that it doesn't appear as if you're getting, an undue benefit that wouldn't be available to others. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about these income and assets on this next slide. Income is any monies received or earned by a household. So it can include things like, kind of most obviously your wages. You have your pay stubs if you're employed by someone, or if you're self-employed. You're probably doing a profit and loss statement, figuring out what your income is. I should say that for those of you who are W-2 employees getting paid by an employer, it's your gross income. For self-employed folks, it's actually your net income. So it would be the income after you account for your operating expenses and the cost of doing business. Income also includes other things like unemployment or Social Security or child support payments. So when you're filling out the chart in the application, make sure you're going, and there is a chart, and we try to list out all these various sources of income and assets so that you don't overlook something. It can also include things like periodic payments from friends or family members. we see this sometimes where an applicant is getting, say, $500 a month from a family member to help with the cost of living. That's great. That counts as income. Income is not just taxable income. It's all sources of income, not just the income from your job. So go through that chart carefully and make sure you're not overlooking certain sources. And we will, at some point, if you move forward, you do have to provide asset statements like from your checking or savings account. So if the only income you disclose is, hey, Dave, I make $65,000 a year from my job, that's my income. But then we're looking at your, bank statements and we see, $500 a month going in there every month for the last 5 months. And we say, hey, what's this? Do you have another job, you forgot to tell us about? And you say, oh yeah, no, like I get, $500 a month from my family to help. And we say, oh, okay, well, that's income. We got to count that. So anyway, it's to your benefit to go through that chart carefully, make sure you don't overlook anything, because you don't want to invest this time and effort and start going down the road only to find out that, you make too much money and are ineligible. Like I said, there's an asset limit at $75,000. That does include gifts or funds you'll use towards the down payment from like a friend or family member, not from the bank. But if you're going to be getting, $5,000, say, from your parents, that would count towards the asset limit. And then there's things like, your checking and savings account, and you're going to have to provide several statements for those. You could have certificates of deposits with a bank. You could have stocks, retirement accounts. That's one that's a little bit tricky. And I know, sometimes people say, what? Because we have to count the net cash value of your retirement account. And that's true even if you're like, 35 or 40 years old or whatever, and saying, hey, I'm not touching that for 25 years or 30 years or whatever, longer. That shouldn't count. I don't necessarily disagree with you. We just have to follow the rules as they're given to us. We don't make up the program rules. Technically, most people can access their retirement accounts. You have to pay a penalty, but it would be that post-penalty amount that gets counted. So you may have to get a statement from the person, trying to think what their name would be, the sort of benefit administrator or someone, indicating what the net cash value of your retirement account is if you have one. You could have other forms of assets like, bonds, or actually a common one now that we see often is, like Venmo and PayPal. These are their cash apps, sort of not too different from a checking or savings account. That's your money in there, and that gets counted same as it would in a checking or savings account. And like I sort of mentioned before, it's just worth mentioning, assets can generate income, and we do need to count that. I think it's not common in the applications we see that someone would have an asset that generates income that pushes them over the income limit. It happens sometimes, but just be aware of that. If you are, say, I don't know, you have a bond and every 6 months, generates interest. Well, that's income that needs, you've been getting it for years and will be for years. That's income that we'd have to count towards the income limit. As a side note, there is no asset limit for rental. So if you're looking at this saying, oh no, I have $150,000 in assets, I can't do this. Well, if you had any interest in an affordable rental unit, then there's no asset limit. But hopefully that doesn't apply, and hopefully the $75,000 asset limit isn't pushing anyone out. All right, any questions on that? If not, I'll keep going. All right, feel free to jump in anytime if anyone's got a question. Let's talk a little bit about the lottery. So you submit your application, we'll confirm receipt. Usually hear from us within 2 to 3 business days, sometimes sooner. If you're ineligible, we'll let you know, and we'll let you know the reason. If there's anything that's incomplete in your application, like you submit an application but you don't submit a mortgage pre-approval, you'd be incomplete, and we'd issue you a notice saying, hey, you're incomplete. We got to get your mortgage pre-approval. But if you provide that and you submit a full application and you report income and assets that are below the requirements, then you'd be eligible and you would receive a lottery application number. And that will be in this form right here. It'll be A dot blank, blank, blank. And the purpose of that is just to give you an anonymous identifier that can be used in the lottery so that when we do the lottery, we're not saying, David Cashman or whatever, your name. So we try and keep your name out of it. That's all that does. It's not, if you're A.001, that literally means you were the first person to submit an application to us. That's all that means and not more. It has no bearing on, when you'll get picked in the lottery or if and when you'd be invited to, have an opportunity to actually buy one of these units. In the lottery, anytime you say lottery, and this is totally understandable because this is how most lotteries in life work, you win or you lose, right? And I guess if it's a lottery, most often you lose, and every once in a while you win. You're ecstatic. But in these lotteries, there's no winners or losers, okay? Everyone who's in the lottery gets a position on the 3-bedroom waiting list. All that the lottery is doing is establishing an order of priority, which will determine if and when you're going to be invited to actually move forward in the next step of this process, because the lottery is just the first step. The next big step is to submit all of the income and asset and tax documentation to demonstrate your eligibility. Okay, again, when you submit your lottery application, you're just reporting your income and assets, but we're not asking for proof. But then we run the lottery, and if you're the first household on the waiting list, well, then in step 2, we're going to say, hey, congratulations, you're the first household in the lottery. Now you're moving forward to step 2. We need you to submit all of your pay stubs and your taxes for last year and your bank statements, and you're self-employed, you need to submit a profit and loss statement, and all these other things, right, to demonstrate what your income and assets actually are. And by the way, when you get your lottery application number, we'll give you a guide that tells you exactly what's going to be required after the lottery if you're invited to move forward. So that way you can begin to prepare those documents so you have them ready in the event you do get invited forward. If you're eligible after submitting all that documentation to us, then step 3 would be to start working with the sales team to go, see a model unit, look at floor plans, and decide which unit you want. So again, nobody wins or loses anything in the lottery. All it does is just establish, kind of if and when you're going to be invited forward in the next steps of the process. The lottery date is January 2nd, 2025. Here we are, another year, pretty soon, 6 p.m. Going to go just like this. It'll be virtual. My colleague Catherine most likely will be running it. You don't have to attend. There's no you don't lose anything if you elect not to attend. We will notify applicants of the results at the same time, which is usually that same evening. Occasionally it pushes into the next morning, but usually it's the same night. You can't always tell based on the lottery drawing where you're going to end up on a waiting list, because there are certain priorities that we have to use when organizing the waiting list. As an example, and this is not the only one, but household size matters. The program really wants to make sure that larger 3-bedroom units, that larger households who need all 3 bedrooms are going to get priority for those, as contrasted to smaller households who might like 3 bedrooms but who don't need 3 bedrooms. So as an example, if a single person is in the lottery, and they can apply and be in the lottery and get picked and be on a waiting list, but if a single person is in the lottery and they're picked very first in the lottery, they're still going to be behind, say, a family of 5. Okay, doesn't matter where they're picked in the lottery, they're still going to be behind them, because the program says, hey, wait a second, that family of 5, they need 3 bedrooms. Shoot, they might need 4 bedrooms, but they need 3 bedrooms. That single person, they don't need 3 bedrooms usually. They might like 3 bedrooms, but they don't need it. So that family of 5 is going to be higher on the waiting list. We don't care where they were drawn. So being live at the lottery can give you, obviously being picked earlier is better than being picked later, but it doesn't tell you everything. You got to wait for us to send you the waiting list that night, which will be sorted and organized. And then once you get that, you'll find your A.000, A dot blank 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 number, match it up on the waiting list, and that will let you know, okay, I'm second or I'm fifth or I'm eighth, whatever. Okay. So I touched on this a bit, but just kind of fleshing this out. Like I said, we'll give you a document requirement guide with your lottery eligibility notice and number, and you'll have 7 days to provide the supporting income and asset documentation. So again, when you get that lottery application number, I recommend, you don't have to, but I recommend that you begin to collect those documents, because there is kind of a lot, to be honest with you. There's a lot, for better or worse, probably for better. These are really sort of somewhat scarce and important resources, and it's important that these homes go to the folks that they're intended for. And the only way to make sure that happens is to, take a close look at people's income and assets. We can't just say, oh, you say you make 60 grand, so I guess we take you at 60 grand, right? I mean, people could be dishonest about that, and that wouldn't be fair. So we really have to peel back the onion and look at it. There is a program administrator. Okay, their name is Mass Housing, just in case you're curious. They oversee hundreds of projects in the state of Massachusetts. And after you've completed your review with us, we do need to send your file to them for sort of a final green light review. In the vast majority of cases, we're very thorough, and if we say you're eligible, they will, in virtually all instances, agree. It's not 100% of the time. It's possible that here and there we might miss something, or we might disagree about how to count something, because believe it or not, because when we're doing income calculations, we're projecting over the next 12 months. So projections are sort of inherently imperfect. They're based on current data and past data, but they're a projection, right? So there's different ways to look at things. Most of the time we agree. Every once in a while we don't. But so we do need their approval, which we usually get. And once you have that, you can move on to the next step, which is we would put you in touch with actually the sales team for the developer, which might be the first time you've spoken to anyone for the sales in the sales team during this process. And they would, we'd give you their contact information, and we'd give them your contact information, and you'd have a few days to meet with them, to go see the available units, and figure out which unit you want. As I think I mentioned, there are 3 different styles of affordable units being offered among the 8. So there's a total of 8 coming in 3 different styles. The benefit of being higher on the waiting list is you can choose from any of the 8. So you'll figure out which style you like the best and which lot you like the best. That's the advantage of being higher up. And so once you reserve that, the next household behind you, then they get to engage in the process. At this point, there'd only be 7 units to pick from, because the first household already took one. So as you get, further down the list towards the 8th person, there's fewer and fewer choices till there's only one option left. Once you've reserved your unit, you do have to put down a $500 deposit. And then within 10 days, you need to sign a purchase and sale agreement, at which time you'll put down 1.5% of the sales price minus the $500. And just in case you're curious, I think the sales price is about 278,000 times 0.01015 minus 500. So that's going to be like $3,600 roughly that you'd have to put down. Roughly $3,600 with the P&S. At this point, and we will reiterate this in the notice we send you, great idea to get an attorney. Home purchase is usually the biggest purchase in most people's lives. You want to have an attorney advocating for you and protecting, your rights and making sure you understand your rights and obligations. And like I said, there is a deed restriction on the unit, which is very specific about how you can resell the unit and for what price. And, you may want to have an attorney look at that and really sort of talk you through that. Again, your choice, but that is a recommendation we make. You'll sign the purchase and sale. It will likely have a date by which you need to get a mortgage commitment. And if you get that mortgage commitment, at that point, you have to do a final review with SEB Housing, because you have to maintain eligibility, not just when we initially look at your file, but all the way up through closing, right? So if you make $70,000 today and you're eligible, and then in 4 months down the road, you've changed jobs, you've got a great new job, it actually pays you $140,000, you double your salary, great, but you may no longer be eligible. In fact, you probably wouldn't in that scenario. So you have to maintain eligibility all the way up through closing. That second and final review we do happens after you get your mortgage commitment, usually about a month before the closing date, ideally. So as you get updated pay stubs and bank statements after that first review, and as you're working through the home buying process, tuck those away somewhere. If you've got a hard copy, put it in a folder in your house, or computer, save it online, whatever, but just keep those updated documents so that when you have to do the second review, you have them ready. And ultimately you'll close on the home. It's not uncommon. I knew I wanted to say that. It's not uncommon that with mortgage commitments, you're working with the bank. There's a lot of people looking at it. There's a lot of things that need to happen. Sometimes it's hard to get it by the deadline. Please be clear, and we'll reiterate this. SEB, we're not the developer. We are a consultant to the developer. So if you're if you're needing an extension or there's some issue, those are things you're going to need to work out with the developer and the sales team, not with SEB. We'll have people say, oh, SEB, I couldn't get my mortgage commitment by the deadline. Can you give me an extension? We say, we can't give you an extension. We didn't even set the deadline. That's between you and the developer. So, you need to ask them. So anyway, we'll remind you of that. That's fine. And I think most developers, if you're working diligently and it looks like you're going to get one, they want to work with you, but just, you want to be clear on that. And yeah, but before I take questions, so here's questions, but I'm going to take questions later. I wanted to show you just a few things. Let's see here. So, oh yeah, so this is this was from the properties website, which, as I said, they got a great, fully robust website. And there's just a few things I picked out. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Obviously, you can do that at your own time. But Thorndike is a well-established developer. They've developed thousands of units, I think. They've got this cool page where you can sort of see their history dating back to 1983. That was the year I was born. They've been working that long. And you can see some of these various different places that they have done developments, really nice ones. I didn't realize this. I know Pine Hills down in Plymouth, 10-year partnership building those homes. They did this development, Red Mill Village in Norton, awarded Best in Nation by the National Association of Home Builders. Not familiar with that one, but that looks nice. Here's another one, West Ridge, 150 unit active adult community in Hudson. Here's one in Braintree. We actually worked with them on this one. Then they did another one in Plymouth. We worked with them on this one as well. Just get a flavor there. There's this one, and I guess they're going to New Hampshire. But anyway, I thought that was cool. Obviously you're buying a home. It's a big, it's a huge purchase. There are great builders and there are stinky builders and there's everything in between. And I think, Thorndike's got a great reputation and they've been in the business for a long time and they build nice homes. So anyway, you can take a look at that. You may be interested. Here's a site plan of the whole development. Okay, so this is going to be the whole development here once it's fully built out. As you can probably guess, when you're building, what is it, 55 separate structures with multiple homes within each, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in phases and over time. So ultimately, there will be 35 affordable units in the whole development. Right now, we're just doing the first phase, which is buildings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15. Then it kind of comes up here, 17 and 18, 14, 13, 11, 12. So this is the first phase, and the 8 affordable units will be in this phase. This is what you'd be choosing from. Future lotteries will have, there'll probably be a few of them. We'll tackle, we'll include other parts of the development. By the way, the affordable units from the exterior will look the same. I mean, there's different styles, but accepting that, they will look like the market rate units. There isn't any way to identify them as an affordable unit just by walking through this development. And they just all look like nice brand new homes with slightly different styles and different colors, but that's it. So that's nice, and they're interspersed throughout the development. So I can't show you, the plot where each affordable unit is designated, but I can tell you, it's not like they're all just sandwiched in the same, like let's put them all in the same buildings, one next to the other, next to the other. They're all sort of scattered throughout the whole entire site, in different buildings in different home styles. And yeah, no, here's their website for this development. So I'm sure you can find that through a quick online search, but just in case, here it is. You can look at, find out about the amenities. You can look at some different floor plans. Oh, I think I wanted to, did I have that up? Yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. So yeah, take some time to look through here. Here's one, I had mentioned this, Dogwood. Not sure what that is. So this is one of the, let me just open the info pack here. Sorry for all the switching around. So we've got 4 magnolias, 3 dogwoods, and 1 alder. Total of 8, 3 different styles. Unfortunately, I don't have a rendering for the alder or the magnolia, but here is the layout for the dogwood. 3 beds and a den, 2 baths, 1875 square feet. You can find this on the website too, so you can take a look at it at your own time, at your own pace. But this just gives you a flavor of their kind of construction design, I guess, floor plans. So, do people have any questions? And we'll be here, so, been here for 50 minutes, but we'll be here throughout the application period. So, if you recognize after today, like, oh, shoot, I meant to ask this question, you can get in touch with us, be happy to talk to you, answer your question. I think a lot of times as people begin to fill out the application, they start to have more questions that they, maybe didn't realize they had. But I'm happy to hang out for a minute if anyone has any questions, and if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, David, I have a question. So all the 8 units will be ready in January, or it will be in phases, like?
Oh, that is a good question. Let me, do I have that information? I don't think they'll all be ready at exactly the same time. Let me see if, hold on one second. I want to see if I have a schedule here. Oh, what is this? It's gonna be, okay, so the first one is gonna be roughly December 2024. There'll be a few more ready February of 2025. There's another building, one will be ready in January of 2025, another one in March of 2025, and then the last two don't have set dates, but that's a long,
Yeah.
a long
Okay.
way of answering your question.
Thank
They'll
you.
be
Thank
sort
you.
of phased in over a few months.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions?
David, how are they working the master insurance policy? Is it an all-in policy or is the buyer going to have to get like a supplemental policy? Does it replace the whole unit and they just have to get for their contents, or in a catastrophic event, are they gonna have to have insurance that would say cover, cabinets and flooring?
That's a great question, and where, I believe it's all in.
Fabulous.
Looking, let's see here. Yeah, all in.
Fabulous. That's great.
Now, Jennifer, let me just say, I'm not an insurance expert, but that, we did have that conversation and they did confirm, I don't know if all in can mean slightly different things to different people. I just want to add that caveat, but that
Yep.
is my understanding, that it's all in covers what, the possessions in the unit and the interiors of the unit, and not just the exterior, right?
My understanding is all in, like, they wouldn't cover, that they would rebuild the whole building, like the whole unit would be rebuilt if there was, say, a fire. But I think they have to get something separate for like liability, personal possessions. I think that's an optional, but as a lender is only gonna look to see that the building is rebuilt.
Right, right. Yeah, I would say, so I've been told all in, and if you move forward and you want to double check that with them at the time of kind of making a reservation, you should do that. But I think they do offer what you're saying there.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, well, I hope this was helpful. Hope you learned something. Hope to see your applications come in soon, and appreciate you tuning in. And I hope everyone has a great night.
I want to say thank you. It was very informative. You covered everything well.
Oh, thanks. Great. Great. Glad to hear it. Appreciate it. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.